I was walking home from my waitress shift when I saw a body lying in the dark alley. When I got closer, my heart stopped. It was my husband, the cop everyone trusted. His bloody hand grabbed mine and he whispered words that still haunt me. "Our daughter. They'll come for her next." That's when my real nightmare began. What I'm about to tell you sounds like a movie, but every word is true. Before I reveal how a simple restaurant waitress brought down the most dangerous people in the city, hit that subscribe button. This story has more twists than you can imagine, and you need to hear every single one. Now, let me take you back to that horrifying night when my entire world came crashing down. My name is Aurora, and 6 months ago I was nobody special. Just another waitress in a white uniform, serving expensive steaks to rich people at the Golden Spoon, the fanciest restaurant in the city. My feet ached every night. My hands smelled like garlic and wine, but I smiled through it all because I had a family to feed. My husband Jake was a police detective, and we had a beautiful 6-year-old daughter named Sophie with curly brown hair and the brightest smile you've ever seen. But our life wasn't perfect, not even close. Jake's mother, Helen, lived with us in our small apartment. She made sure I knew every single day that I wasn't good enough for her precious son. "A waitress," she'd say with this disgusted look on her face, like the word tasted bitter in her mouth. My son could have married a lawyer, a doctor, someone with class. But he chose you. She'd watch me come home exhausted in my white uniform, stained with sauce and sweat, and shake her head like I was the biggest disappointment in her life. The worst part? Jake never defended me. He'd just look away, uncomfortable, and change the subject. Over the past year, he'd become distant, coming home late. Secret phone calls where he'd step outside and talk in whispers. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at nothing, this worried look on his face like he was carrying the weight of the world. I thought maybe he was having an affair. God, how I wish that's all it was. Money was always tight too, which made no sense. Jake had a good salary as a detective, but we could barely pay our bills. When I'd ask about it, he'd get defensive. "I'm handling it, Aurora. Just trust me." But trust was getting harder when he wouldn't look me in the eyes anymore. That Tuesday night in late March changed everything. I was finishing my shift at the Golden Spoon around 11. My white uniform was splattered with red wine from when Table 7 got too drunk and knocked over a glass. My manager, Carlos, offered to drive me home, but I said no. I always said no. The restaurant was only 20 minutes from our apartment if I took the shortcut through the warehouse district. It saved me bus fare, and we needed every dollar. The streets were empty and dark. Streetlights flickered like they were about to die. I hugged my thin jacket closer, wishing I'd worn something warmer. That's when I saw him, a man lying on the ground near the alley entrance. My first instinct was to keep walking. In this city, you learn not to get involved, but something made me look closer, the way his body was positioned, the color of his jacket. My heart stopped. I ran. My worn-out sneakers slapped against the wet pavement as I sprinted toward him. "No, no, no, please God, no," I kept saying over and over. When I got close enough to see his face, my knees almost gave out. It was Jake, my husband, the father of my child, lying in a pool of blood that looked black under the dim streetlight. He'd been shot twice in the chest and stabbed once in the side. His police badge was still clipped to his belt, glinting in the darkness like some kind of cruel joke. "Jake!" I dropped to my knees beside him, my white uniform immediately soaking up his blood. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely touch him. "Jake, oh God, what happened? Who did this?" His eyes fluttered open. He was still alive, but barely. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth when he tried to speak. I leaned closer, my tears falling onto his face. "Aurora," he whispered, his voice so weak I had to press my ear to his lips. Don't call police. They did this. My own partners." "What?" "Jake, no, I need to call an ambulance. His hand shot up and grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Listen to me. Storage Unit 247, evidence. Everything you need." He pressed something small and metal into my palm, a key. Don't trust anyone. They're everywhere. Jake, please, I don't understand. Sophie, he gasped, and fresh blood spilled from his mouth. They know where we live. They'll come for her. You have to protect our baby girl. My whole body went cold. Sophie, our daughter, sleeping peacefully at home with her grandmother, completely unaware that her father was dying in the street. I'm sorry, Jake whispered, tears now running down his temples into his hair. I lied to you. About everything. I was trying to protect you both. But I failed. I'm so sorry, Aurora. You deserved better than me. Stop talking like that, I sobbed, pressing my hands against his chest wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. My white uniform was completely red now. You're not dying. I won't let you die. Just hold on, please, just hold on. But he was fading. I could see it in his eyes. That light that made him Jake, my Jake, was dimming like someone turning down a lamp. That's when I felt it. The presence of someone watching. I looked up sharply and saw movement in the shadows across the street. A figure, just standing there, watching us. Terror like I'd never known flooded through my body. Jake's words echoed in my mind. They'll come for her next. I made a decision in that split second that would change everything. I couldn't call the police. I couldn't call an ambulance. If Jake's own partners did this to him, then everyone in uniform was a potential enemy. But I couldn't let him die in the street either. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I could think of, Carlos, my manager at the restaurant. Aurora? What's wrong? You sound... Carlos, I need help. Now, I can't explain on the phone, but I need you to come to the corner of 5th and Industrial with your car. Please, it's life or death. To his credit, Carlos didn't ask questions. I'm coming. 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. I kept pressure on Jake's wounds, kept talking to him, kept begging him to stay with me. The figure in the shadows was gone, but I knew they were still watching somehow. I could feel eyes on us like insects crawling on my skin. When Carlos arrived, his face went white at the sight. Holy Mother of God, is that... Help me get him in your car, I said, my voice surprisingly steady considering I was falling apart inside. We need to go to County Memorial. Not City General. Do you understand? Not the hospital downtown. Carlos nodded, and together we got Jake into the back seat. I climbed in with him, cradling his head in my lap, still applying pressure to his wounds. As Carlos sped through the empty streets, I watched Jake's chest rise and fall in shallow breaths. Each one might be his last. Stay with me, I whispered, stroking his hair like I did when he had nightmares. Stay with me, baby. Sophie needs you. I need you. Don't you dare leave us. At County Memorial, I lied through my teeth, told the doctors it was a random mugging, that we didn't see who did it, that we didn't want police involved because we were scared. The doctors were suspicious, but they had bigger concerns, like the fact that my husband was coding on their emergency room table. I stood outside those surgery doors for 6 hours, still wearing my blood-soaked white uniform, clutching that small key in my fist so hard it left marks in my palm. Carlos stayed with me the whole time, bringing me terrible hospital coffee and not asking the 1,000 questions I knew he wanted to ask. Finally, a surgeon came out, her scrubs spattered with Jake's blood. He's alive, she said, and I nearly collapsed with relief. But he's in a coma. The next 72 hours are critical. He lost a lot of blood, and there's significant organ damage. Even if he survives, we don't know what kind of brain function he'll have. Can I see him? Soon. We're moving him to ICU. But Mrs. Hayes, I have to be honest with you. The injuries he sustained, this wasn't a simple mugging. Someone wanted him dead. You need to call the police. I will, I lied. I just need to see him first. Dawn was breaking when I finally left the hospital. I had Carlos drop me off 2 blocks from my apartment building. I needed to think, needed to understand what was happening before I walked back into that apartment and faced Helen's questions. Jake's words kept replaying in my mind. Storage Unit 247? Evidence? Everything you need. The key in my pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. But first, I had to check on Sophie. When I walked through our apartment door, Helen was waiting in the living room, still in her bathrobe, arms crossed. The moment she saw my blood-covered uniform, her face went from angry to horrified to furious in 3 seconds flat. "Where is my son?" she demanded. "Where is Jake? What have you done? He's in the hospital. You finally did it!" Helen's voice was shrill, loud enough to wake neighbors. "You destroyed him. I knew you would. A woman like you, with no education, no class, dragging my son down to your level. What did you do to him?" "I didn't do anything," I shouted back, too exhausted and traumatized to deal with her poison. "He was attacked. Shot and stabbed. I found him and saved his life, which is more than—" "Liar." She stepped closer, her face twisted with rage. "I know girls like you. Gold diggers. You probably set him up, didn't you? Probably working with criminals to rob him, and it went wrong. That's insane. I love Jake. I would never—" "Love?" She laughed, cruel and cold. "You love his paycheck. You love having a respected husband to make you seem legitimate. Well, I've had enough. If my son doesn't survive this, I'm taking Sophie. A judge will give her to me over a waitress with blood on her hands. Literally." I looked down at my ruined white uniform, Jake's dried blood making it stiff and brown. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The thought of losing both Jake and Sophie was more than I could bear. "Where is Sophie?" I asked quietly, dangerously. "Sleeping. At least one of us cares about not waking her with all this drama." I pushed past Helen and went to Sophie's small room. She was curled up under her pink blanket, her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. So innocent, so perfect, so unaware that her entire world was collapsing. I kissed her forehead gently, breathing in that sweet child smell of shampoo and dreams. "Mommy loves you," I whispered. "I'm going to protect you." No matter what. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All I could think about was that key and those numbers. Storage unit 247. Jake had risked his last conscious moments to tell me about it. Whatever was there, it was important enough to die for. I waited until Helen went to her room, then quietly slipped out. I told myself Sophie was safe for now. Whoever attacked Jake thought he was dead or dying. They didn't know about the key or the storage unit yet. I had a small window of time. The storage facility was in the industrial district, one of those places with orange garage doors and combination locks. Unit 247 was in the back corner, away from cameras. I used the key with shaking hands, and the door rolled up with a rusty screech. Inside were 3 cardboard boxes and a small safe. My heart pounding, I opened the first box. Files, hundreds of files. Police reports, but not official ones. These were copies Jake had made, annotated with his handwriting. Names circled, dates highlighted, patterns emerging. The second box contained photographs, crime scenes, but also surveillance photos. Police officers meeting with men in expensive suits, officers loading bags into unmarked cars, officers at restaurants, at warehouses, at docks. One photo made my blood run cold. It was taken at the Golden Spoon, my restaurant. And there, sitting at table 12, was a police captain shaking hands with a man I recognized, Mr. Peterson, one of our regular customers. Always polite, always tipped 25%, always wore expensive watches. The third box was full of cash, stacks and stacks of $100 bills held together with rubber bands. There had to be $50,000 there, maybe more. My hands trembled as I reached for the safe. I tried Jake's birthday as the combination. Nothing. Our wedding anniversary. Nothing. Then, desperate, I tried Sophie's birthday. It clicked open. Inside were USB drives, more photographs, and a handwritten journal. Jake's journal. I opened it to a random page and started reading. March 3rd, Captain Morris suspects I'm close to breaking the case. I can't trust anyone at the station except her. The corruption goes deeper than I thought. They're not just taking bribes. They're actively running the drugs. Using police resources to transport, using evidence lockups to store, using their badges to eliminate competition. Peterson is the one in charge. He owns half the city, including politicians and judges. If I go public now without concrete proof, I'll end up dead and the case dies with me. I have to be smart. I have to protect Aurora and Sophie. They can never know until it's over. If something happens to me, I pray Aurora is smart enough to find this. She's stronger than she knows. Tears blurred my vision as I read page after page. Jake hadn't been having an affair. He hadn't been a dirty cop. He'd been a hero, going undercover so deep that even I couldn't know, pretending to be corrupt to gather evidence, meeting with criminals, taking money to maintain his cover, all while secretly documenting everything, the money in the boxes, evidence from busts that Jake was keeping off the books to build his case, every dollar tracked and photographed. And I'd spent a year doubting him, resenting him, thinking he was abandoning us. I was sobbing now, clutching his journal to my chest. "I'm sorry," I whispered to no one. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I should have trusted you." That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" Breathing. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice, electronically distorted. "You have something that belongs to us." My blood turned to ice. "We know you went to the storage unit. We know you have the files. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to bring everything to the old factory on Riverside tomorrow night. Midnight. Come alone. If you don't, or if you involve police, your daughter disappears. Understand? Who are you? What do you want? Bring the evidence. All of it. Or Sophie becomes an orphan. You have 24 hours. The line went dead. I stood there, frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear. They knew about the storage unit. They knew about Sophie. They were watching us. Had probably been watching us all along. But how did they know so fast? I'd only been at the storage unit for 30 minutes. Unless someone in my house told them. The thought hit me like a physical blow. Helen, Jake's mother, the woman who'd been living with us for 2 years, who always asked questions, who always seemed to know things, who handled Jake's mail, answered his phone when he wasn't home, had access to everything. Number. It couldn't be. She was his mother. She loved him. But she also loved money. And Jake had kept talking about evidence funds going missing. Small amounts that wouldn't be noticed unless you were tracking everything carefully. I had to get home. Had to check on Sophie. Had to make sure she was safe. I drove like a maniac, running red lights, not caring about speed limits. When I burst through the apartment door, Helen was in the kitchen making tea like it was any normal morning. "Where's Sophie?" I demanded. "Still sleeping? Why are you acting crazy?" I ran to Sophie's room. Empty. Her bed was made. Her rabbit was gone. She wasn't there. "Where is she?" I screamed, running back to the kitchen, grabbing Helen by her bathrobe. "Where is my daughter?" Helen smiled, actually smiled, cold and cruel. "Somewhere safe, as long as you do what you're told." The betrayal was like a knife twisting in my gut. "You? It was you all along? You helped them kidnap your own granddaughter? That money Jake was hoarding? It should have been ours. He was my son. That money belonged to our family, but he was going to turn it all in like some kind of Boy Scout. Throw away millions for what? Justice?" She spat the word like it was poison. "I worked with these men for months, feeding them information. They promised me a cut, a real cut, enough to live the life I deserve. She's 6 years old. I was crying, shaking her. How could you do this to your own granddaughter? She'll be fine if you cooperate. Bring them the evidence. They'll let her go. Everyone wins. Except Jake, who's dying in a hospital because of you." Helen's face hardened. "My son was stupid. Playing hero, getting himself killed for nothing. But you? You can be smart. Bring them what they want. Get Sophie back. We can all move on." I wanted to hurt her. God, I wanted to hurt her so badly, but Sophie's life depended on me staying calm, staying smart. "Fine," I said, releasing her. "I'll bring them the evidence." "Good girl. I'll text you the address." I went to my room, locked the door, and collapsed against it. My baby girl was out there somewhere, scared, alone, wondering why mommy wasn't coming for her. The image of her little face, those trusting eyes, nearly broke me. But I couldn't break. Not now. Jake had said there was one person he trusted. Captain Morris. I had to find her. I went back to the hospital first. Jake was in ICU, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed, keeping him alive. I sat beside him, took his cold hand in mine. "I need you to wake up," I whispered. "Sophie needs you. They took her, Jake. Your mother. God, your own mother helped them. I don't know what to do. Please, please wake up and tell me what to do." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, Jake's eyes fluttered. His fingers twitched in mine. His mouth moved, trying to form words. "Jake!" I leaned closer. "Can you hear me?" "Morris," he breathed out. Just one word. Then his eyes closed again, and the steady beep of the heart monitor confirmed he was still alive, still fighting. "Captain Morris!" I had to find Captain Morris. I left the hospital and went straight to the police station. It felt like walking into a lion's den. Any one of these cops could be corrupt. Any one of them could be working for Peterson. But I had no choice. At the front desk, I asked for Captain Morris. The desk sergeant looked me up and down, taking in my disheveled appearance, the dried blood still on my clothes. "She's in a meeting. You'll have to wait." I waited for an hour that felt like a year. Finally, a tall, African-American woman in a police captain's uniform emerged from a hallway. She had gray in her close-cropped hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing, and the bearing of someone who'd seen every kind of evil humanity had to offer. "Captain Morris?" I stood up quickly. "I need to talk to you. It's about Jake Hayes." Her expression flickered just for a moment, then went carefully neutral. "Follow me." She led me to a small interrogation room. Private, quiet. She closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "I know who you are," she said before I could speak. "You're Aurora, Jake's wife. I heard about the hospital. The official story is a mugging, but I know that's not true. Jake said to trust you. He said you're the only one." Captain Morris sat down across from me. "Jake Hayes was one of my best detectives. 18 months ago, he came to me with evidence of corruption in the department. We initiated an off-books undercover operation. Jake went deep, so deep that no one else on the force knew what he was really doing. To everyone else, including your mother-in-law, he appeared to be investigating drug trafficking, but really he was investigating his own colleagues. They shot him, they tried to kill him, and now they have my daughter." Morris's eyes went hard. "Explain." I told her everything. The storage unit, the evidence, Helen's betrayal, the phone call, the kidnapping. By the time I finished, my voice was shaking, but my resolve was steel. "We have 24 hours, I said. "They want the evidence in exchange for Sophie. But I know they'll kill us both anyway. They can't let us live, not after what Jake documented." "You're right," Morris said grimly. "Peterson doesn't leave loose ends. He'll take the evidence, destroy it, and eliminate you and Sophie." "Then what do I do? How do I save my daughter?" Morris leaned forward. "We use you as bait. We set up a sting. You go to the meet wearing a wire with my tactical team in position. We catch them in the act, rescue Sophie, and end this. And if something goes wrong, if they find the wire, if they kill her before your team can move, that's the risk. But it's the only play we have." I sat there thinking about my sweet little girl, thinking about Jake fighting for his life in that hospital bed, thinking about all the families destroyed by these corrupt cops and their drug operation. "There's another way," I said slowly. "A safer way. But you're not going to like it." "I'm listening. I give them fake evidence, copies that look real but are worthless. I hide the real evidence somewhere they'll never find it. Then I kill Peterson myself." Morris's eyebrows shot up. "You're talking about murder." "I'm talking about protecting my child. These men took everything from me. Jake is barely alive. Sophie is terrified somewhere. They murdered people, destroyed families, corrupted an entire police department. And you're telling me the system will handle it?" I laughed bitterly. "The system is corrupted. Half the judges are probably on Peterson's payroll. Aurora, I understand you're scared and angry, but no, you don't understand. I'm a waitress, a nobody. These men think I'm weak, think I'll just hand over the evidence and beg for my daughter back. They're underestimating me, and that's the only advantage I have. Morris studied me for a long moment. What exactly are you proposing? Over the next hour we crafted a plan. It was risky, maybe even suicidal, but it was the best chance we had. Morris would help me create false copies of the most important documents. We'd scan everything, save it to secure servers, send copies to the FBI, the State Attorney General, and 3 different news outlets with instructions to publish if anything happened to me or Sophie. Then I'd go to the meet with the fake evidence and a gun. I can't officially sanction this, Morris warned. If you kill Peterson, even in self-defense you could face charges. I don't care. I just want my daughter back. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I went back to the apartment and acted normal around Helen, pretending I was going to cooperate. She watched me with those calculating eyes, probably already spending her share of the blood money in her mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at Sophie's empty bed, remembering the sound of her laugh, the way she'd run to me after school and wrap her little arms around my waist. "Mommy!" Guess what I learned today? I recorded a video message on my phone just in case. "Sophie baby, if you're seeing this, it means Mommy couldn't come back to you. I want you to know that everything I did for you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me and Daddy. You are loved more than you'll ever know. Be strong, baby girl. Be brave. And remember, bad people don't win forever. Good people, ordinary people like Mommy, we fight back. I love you to the moon and back." Midnight came too fast. The old factory on Riverside was exactly the kind of place where bad things happened. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, the smell of rust and decay. I pulled up in Jake's car, the boxes of fake evidence in the trunk, his service weapon tucked into the back of my jeans. I'd never shot a gun before except when Jake took me to the range once, but desperation makes you learn fast. The main floor of the factory was empty except for shadows and moonlight streaming through holes in the roof. My footsteps echoed on the concrete. Every muscle in my body was tense, ready to run or fight or die. "Mrs. Hayes." The voice came from the darkness. "So glad you could make it." Mr. Peterson stepped into the light, and seeing him out of context was surreal. He was still wearing an expensive suit, still had that friendly smile that had charmed so many restaurant customers. But now I could see the monster underneath. 2 men flanked him, big, armed professional. This was no amateur operation. "Where's my daughter?" I demanded. "Straight to business. I always liked that about you. You were an excellent waitress, you know. Attentive, professional. It's a shame things had to end this way." "Where is?" Sophie Peterson gestured, and one of his men spoke into a radio. Moments later, another man appeared, dragging Sophie by the arm. She was crying, terrified, but when she saw me, her face lit up with hope. "Mommy, I'm here, baby. Everything's going to be okay." "Did you bring the evidence?" Peterson asked. "It's in my car." "Let her go first." Peterson laughed. "I don't think so. Here's how this works. You give me everything Jake stole, every file, every photo, every recording. I verify it's all there. Then you and your daughter can leave. You forget everything you saw and go back to your simple little life. Everybody wins." "You expect me to believe you'll just let us walk away? What choice do you have?" He had a point, but he didn't know about the copies, the FBI, the fail-safes. He thought he was in control. "Fine," I said, "but Sophie comes to me first. Then I'll take you to the car." Peterson considered this, then nodded. "Let the girl go." The man released Sophie and she ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist. I held her tight, feeling her heart racing against mine. "Close your eyes, baby," I whispered. "No matter what happens, keep them closed." "Show me the evidence," Peterson said. We walked to the car together, his men surrounding us. I opened the trunk, showed him the boxes. He rifled through them, checking random files. It was convincing work. Morris had done well. "This is good," Peterson said. "But something bothers me, Mrs. Hayes. You're being too cooperative. Where's the desperate mother begging for her child? Where's the grief over your dying husband?" "I'm doing what you asked." "No, you're playing a game." His eyes narrowed. "Where's the real evidence? That is the real—" He pulled a gun and aimed it at Sophie's head. "Don't insult my intelligence. I've been running this city for 15 years. You think some waitress can outsmart me? Where are the originals?" My heart was hammering. Sophie was crying again, pressed against my side. This was it. The moment where everything either worked or fell apart. "You want the truth?" I said, my voice steady despite the terror. "The truth is already with the FBI, with the state attorney general, with 3 different newspapers set to publish tomorrow morning if I don't check in. You can kill me and my daughter right now, but you've already lost. Jake won. Even dying, he beat you." Peterson's face went purple with rage. "You stupid—" I didn't let him finish. I shoved Sophie behind me and drew Jake's gun in one smooth motion, muscle memory from that one training session taking over. I fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Peterson fell back, clutching his shoulder. His men raised their weapons, but they hesitated. They didn't know if I was bluffing about the FBI. That moment of hesitation was all we needed. Suddenly, the factory erupted with light and sound. "Police! Drop your weapons!" Captain Morris and her tactical team poured in from every entrance. It was beautiful chaos. Peterson's men were surrounded, outgunned, confused. They dropped their weapons and hit the ground. I kept my gun trained on Peterson, who was bleeding and furious on the concrete floor. "That's for Jake," I said, "and for every family you destroyed." "Aurora!" Morris was beside me, gently taking the gun from my shaking hands. "It's over. You did it." I collapsed to my knees, pulling Sophie into my arms. "You're safe. You're safe now, baby. Mommy's got you." The next few hours were a blur of statements, evidence collection, and arrests. Peterson was taken to the hospital under armed guard. His men were processed and booked. More arrests followed throughout the night as the full scale of the corruption became clear. 15 police officers, 3 judges, a city councilman. Peterson's entire organization unraveled like a cheap sweater. Helen was arrested at our apartment, still thinking she'd get away with it. The look on her face when the cops read her rights was something I'll never forget. By dawn, it was finally over. I took Sophie to the hospital to see Jake. He was still in a coma, but the doctors said his vitals were improving. Sophie climbed carefully onto the bed beside him, curling up against his side like she used to when she was smaller. "Daddy, wake up," she whispered. "We need you." Mommy was so brave, but she's tired now. Please wake up. And maybe it was coincidence, or maybe it was the power of a child's love. But Jake's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then clearing when he saw us. "Aurora," he whispered. "Sophie." I broke down completely, crying and laughing at the same time. "You're awake." "You're actually awake. Did you—" He struggled to form words. "Did you find it? The evidence?" "I found it. We got them. Peterson, Helen, everyone. It's over, Jake. You did it. You saved this city." Tears rolled down his temples. "You did it. You saved us. You saved Sophie. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." We protected each other. That's what family does. Sophie was crying too, happy tears, her little hand gripping her father's fingers. "I love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Princess. Love you both so much." The doctor said Jake would need months of physical therapy. He'd have scars, both physical and mental, from what he'd been through, but he was alive. We were all alive. And that was more than I'd hoped for 72 hours ago. The story hit the news like a bomb. Waitress takes down corruption ring. Simple woman saves city. The media camped outside our apartment for weeks. I gave one interview, just one, to make sure the truth was told. Then I refused all others. I wasn't interested in fame. I just wanted my family back. The restaurant offered me a promotion, manager of the Golden Spoon, better pay, better hours, respect. I accepted, not because of the money but because I'd learned something important during those terrible days. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, capable of things I never thought possible, and I wasn't going to go back to being invisible. Jake eventually retired from the police force. Too much trauma, too many betrayals. He couldn't trust the badge anymore, and I didn't blame him. He took a job teaching criminal justice at the community college, teaching the next generation to do better, to be better. Sophie went to therapy, and slowly the nightmares faded. She's resilient, like kids are. She still remembers, but it doesn't define her. As for me, I go to work in my white uniform every day. I serve food to powerful people, and sometimes I see the same greed and corruption in their eyes that I saw in Peterson's. But now I'm not afraid of it. Now I know that ordinary people like me, people who just want to protect their families and live decent lives, we have power too. We just have to be brave enough to use it. Captain Morris visits sometimes. We've become friends, bonded by what we went through. She was promoted to deputy chief and is working to reform the department from the inside. It's slow work, but it's happening. Last week I was serving table 12, the same table where Jake photographed Peterson all those months ago. A businessman sat down, expensive suit, expensive watch, that same entitled smile. He ordered the most expensive steak and barely looked at me while doing it. As I brought his food, I noticed him on his phone, talking quietly about a shipment and keeping things quiet. Old Aurora would have ignored it, would have just done her job and gone home. New Aurora? New Aurora took out her phone and photographed him, sent the photo to Captain Morris with a simple text, "Table 12, might want to look into him, because that's who I am now. I'm still a waitress in a white uniform, still a wife and mother, still ordinary in most ways, but I'm also a woman who looked evil in the face and didn't blink. A woman who learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to look away. Heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes we wear aprons and carry hot plates. Sometimes we're just trying to get through our shift and get home to our families. But when the moment comes, when everything we love is threatened, we find strength we never knew we had. That's what I learned. That's what Jake's investigation taught us both. The system can be corrupted, power can be abused, but ordinary people like you and me, we're the real heroes of this world. We just have to be brave enough to act. Aurora lost everything that mattered, her safety, her mother-in-law's betrayal cut deeper than any knife, and her daughter was taken from her arms. But she gained something more powerful than she ever imagined, the knowledge that she was unstoppable when protecting those she loved. If this story gave you chills and made you believe in the power of ordinary courage, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of real people with extraordinary bravery. Comment below, could you do what Aurora did? Would you risk everything for your family? What would you have done differently? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. Remember, heroes don't wear capes or badges. Sometimes they wear white uniforms and serve your dinner, hiding strength that could move mountains. Until next time, stay brave, stay strong, and never underestimate the power of a mother's love.